So you know how it is when you're in a good situation, a good relationship, something that meets your needs and it fulfills you, it's comfortable. And after a while, that can get boring. And you start fantasizing about more exciting things. Maybe there's something out there that's a little cooler or sexier, maybe even a little dangerous. Little over a decade ago, I heard that siren song, and I followed it. And in doing so, I learned the wisdom behind the phrase, "Be careful what you wish for." Now, I've been a political junkie since I was a little kid. In first grade, I begged my teacher to let us watch Jimmy Carter's inaugural in class. And she said, "If you bring the TV, we can watch." And I did. When Pope John Paul II came to the United States for his first visit as pontiff, I was on the tarmac at O'Hare Airport waiting to greet him with many thousands of others. And the most thrilling thing that happened that night was I bumped into and got to shake hands with Big Jim Thompson, who was the governor of Illinois at the time. So when I got this job in 2002, that dovetailed perfectly with my political interest, it was kind of magical. I'd been out of work for almost a year at this point, so any job would have been great. But the job I got was as an editor for a directory publishing company, government directory publishing. Essentially, it's an enhanced phone book for elected officials and government agencies. And I was assigned Congress, which meant that I got to call people on the Hill and find out what their jobs were. I followed their trajectory as they went from congressional offices to committees. I would tell people that it was like being a statistician for the NFL. I wasn't a player, I wasn't a coach, but I was getting paid to watch the game. And in November of 2004, I had the pleasure of entering into my records a young community organizer from the south side of Chicago as the junior senator from my home state. That was really pretty cool. And so this job continued like that for a good long time. It was engaging, it was interesting to me. But after about 3 years, the bloom kind of fell off the rose. It wasn't horribly intellectually stimulating work. I wasn't challenging myself. The pay was okay, not great. And I decided maybe it was time for me to look for something that would be more of a challenge, more exciting, better pay. And so I started looking. And after a few months, I got an interview with a place that seemed to fit the bill. They told me about the job, and there would be opportunities to do some stuff I'd never done before. I would be able to teach classes. I would be traveling for work some. I would be writing extensively, which is something I love to do. This sounded fantastic. I went through several series of interviews, culminating with an interview with the president of the company. And I must have done pretty well because he offered me the job by the end of that interview. And I was thrilled. Not only was I going to be challenged in this job, but it had something from my current job that I was afraid of losing. See, that job as an editor, all I had to do was work my 40 hours and go home. I didn't have to work on the weekends. I didn't have to think about it when I wasn't there. Well, during this interview, while he's selling me on the company and why he thinks I'd be happy there, he made sure to press the point that he believes strongly in work-life balance. Every night he was home for dinner with his family. And he told me that while there might be the occasional late night, the rare long week, that I could expect and would be expected to hold to a 40-hour week. And really, when you think about it, the phrase work-life balance is practically synonymous with DC consulting firm. So the next Monday, I went into my current job and gave my notice to my boss, Bill. Now, I felt a little bad about this because Bill had only been on the job a few months. He had come on shortly after I decided to leave. And we had developed a great rapport in the months that we'd worked together. We'd also bonded over football. He'd added me to his office football pool, and I'd reserved him a spot in my fantasy league for the following season. So I told him about the job and how excited I was and sorry to be going, and he said he understood and he wished me well. I started working for the consulting firm in early March, and the first few weeks were incredibly frantic. I was trying to get up to speed, I was trying to understand what it was I was doing, and I just couldn't seem to get my feet under me. I was worried that I never would. But I told myself, it's early days, the people here believe in you, you wanted this challenge, give it your all. And so I did. By summer, I'd had a couple of successes. I'd helped to revamp their website. I'd done some script doctoring on some training videos that they were doing. A lot of fun. But those victories were few and far between. And I found myself working 50 hours a week. And even with that extra time working, the quality of my work I wasn't happy with. And my bosses were starting to grumble. And it became apparent that I was going to have to work even harder. By autumn, I was working 60 hours a week, sometimes 80. I'm not constitutionally built for this. And I wasn't getting any better at the job. At the same time, my then fiance, now wife, was also working very hard. She'd been transferred downtown and was trying to work as hard as I was. And we found out that we don't work well as a two hard-charging career couple. This all came to a head in mid-November. I was at the office late, and my fiance called me in tears. She'd had a horrible day at the office, and she just wanted me to come home. And I said, I'm sorry, I understand. Let me wrap up a couple of things. I got another hour's work, and then I'll be home. I promise no later than 8 o'clock. She sobbed a little bit and said, honey, it's after 11 already. That's when I knew I had made a huge mistake, and I knew I had to get out. So I was a little worried because, for one, I had just done a job search and I hated it. And I didn't want to have to do it again so soon. The other problem was I was floundering in this job, barely keeping it, and I didn't know how I was going to be able to juggle both finding a new job and keeping my head above water in this one that I was woefully unqualified for. So I took the Thanksgiving holiday. I was going to strategize. I was going to figure out my plan of attack. But I kept coming back to that editing job and how easy it was and the rhythms of it. And I never returned to a job that I'd quit before, so the whole concept of it was foreign to me. But I figured, what the heck? Bill's a friend. I'll call him. Maybe we can work something out. The Monday after Thanksgiving, I left the office during lunch, found a far corner of the office building, and called Bill. Bill, hey, it's Jack. Jack, great to hear from you. Hey, how about those games on Thanksgiving? Yeah, they were pretty good. So everything going okay? No, Bill, they're not going well at all. I was wondering, is there any chance you might have an opening? Silence for a beat. And then he says, Jack, you have the most amazing timing of anyone I've ever met. The Monday before, the editor of the state government book had tendered her resignation. He had walked in that day prepared to try and find someone to fill that role. Instead, he got to ask me when I wanted to start. To say that this was a relief would be the understatement of my life. 10 years ago, this month is when I returned to that job. And it has been a wonderful, welcoming, safe place for me all that time. And that was the end of my new beginning. I learned a couple of things about phrases, things, cliches. Be careful what you wish for. That one's true. But there's another that maybe isn't. It turns out you actually can go home again. Thanks.